Yes, guys, welcome back. Another episode of Teams Like Brighton. And as you can tell, it's a good one. It's a great day. It's a great weekend. And I'm still grinning like a Cheshire cat. Oh, Richie, what a game against Liverpool. That has to be easily the most complete performance. What do you think?
I'm actually going to just hand over straight to you because you are obviously the Brighton fan and you are so happy for this. So obviously Brighton's first win over Liverpool since 1961 in the league. How does that feel?
Do you know what? It's just getting a win is something, but winning so convincingly and dominating a team where the majority of them have won the Premier League and the Champions League not that long ago is just an insane turnaround for us. And I was saying after the game, like, you know, Potter laid down the foundation of us playing great football, but De Zerbi has ironed out every single problem we have had in front of goal. I honestly, I cannot think of another time when we have been so clinical in front of goal, creating so many chances, and a team of Liverpool's caliber having absolutely no answer for us. It was just, it was a very surreal moment, I think, and it really gets you believing in how successful we could be, not just this season, but under De Zerbi as a whole. Because I mean, and we'll talk about him later on, but Solly March, he was incredible. I can't. I'm struggling to get the words out to describe just how good a win that was. Everything was just so in sync, fine twined. Like everything, just from the first whistle to the last, we were just constantly ahead of them. Klopp had no answers on the touchline. Pep Linders had no answers, and he's the tactician of the group. Trent Alexander-Arnold had an absolute nightmare on the left wing. Joel Matip tried to cover him against Matoma, but again, no answers there. We had Solly March, who was just running rings around Andy Robertson, who is still, in my opinion, one of the best left backs in the world right now. And the kid from Helsham, I say kid, he's about the same age as me. This lad from Helsham, born and raised in Sussex, little spell at Lewis in between two Brighton spells, and he's just run rings around him and scored a beautiful second goal, by the way, an incredible brace from him. And it's just every time you look around, I went in this game quietly confident. And then I was a little bit more confident at the ground. And I'm not being confident because knowing many Brighton fans over the last few decades, you just know that Brighton Hove Albion they just find a banana skin somehow and it slips. But I think this is the first time as a Brighton Hove Albion fan where I felt, no, we're not slipping up. There's something special happening here yet again. And I think this, as much as I can possibly say on it, but I mean, De Zerbi, man, like the way he celebrates that after each goal was just wonderful to see. I love him. I'm loving this team. I'm just loving this season as a whole. And what a result! What a result!
I disagree that you won't be able to say any more. I reckon you could talk for hours and hours and hours about that Brighton win. But yeah, I think just actually a quick question. Would you say this was better than the 4-0 Man U or the 4-1 Chelsea in terms of, I guess, the peak, the Everest? I mean, hopefully it's not the
Do you know
peak,
what I
obviously, but
think?
maybe the best so far.
Yeah. Do you know what I do think that there is an element of this being better than the Chelsea match, and probably for the United match as well. United match was a complete performance over a team that just had no answer for anything. Chelsea were and still are in a transition and just slowly. And then I think a lot of the players had a point to prove against Potter, wanting to jump the gun and just be like, well, okay, all right, we're not happy poo this. I remember Duncan's interview ahead of the match and the comments he said. So you could tell that they were fired up. So there was something there for them. They had that point to prove. But this match, Liverpool shouldn't be where they are. And I don't care about all these excuses about injuries and things like that. That was a very, very good starting 11 they played out. The only person they missed massively was Van Dijk. And yeah, we could talk about their below par performances, but this is a team that really should be competing and easily top 4, but they're not. Their heads are in the sand at the moment, and we punished them brilliantly. So, but again, when you're playing against teams of that caliber, you still got to push on for 90 minutes and they were at times trying to find answers, and they weren't giving up until the final whistle, but they still had their mistakes in them. But we capitalized on that, and I don't think we would have done in previous. If it was the same scenario this time last season, we would have lost or dropped points. It was just all round. It was just complete from the word go. Mo Salah was marked out brilliantly by Levi Colwill. The distribution in midfield was read brilliantly by Caicedo and McAllister. The wings were well supported from defence to attack. And just every time we just had an attacking approach, Liverpool were panicking. And I haven't seen the Liverpool side panic that much since probably under Hodgson. It's amazing how far they have fallen. But at the same time, and more importantly, it's amazing how far we have climbed up as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a nice way to sum up. But I mean, just being at the game, one touch passing, just beautiful stuff. So easily inviting the press, passing around it, outmaneuvering them, and then having more people up the pitch. Liverpool have said that. Well, a lot of the kind of talk around Liverpool at the moment is that obviously they do have injuries, which is a fair point, but they also need an injection of sort of vibrancy and maybe fresh blood in midfield. And the contrast between Caicedo and McAllister with Thiago, Jordan Henderson, and Fabinho was unbelievable. But also, because age is not necessarily an excuse, Adam Lallana, who's older than all of them at 34, was like a spring chicken. And he was just, silky skills, lovely, build-up play, such a good general in the middle of the field, sort of marshalling everyone else and keeping them in their shape and just barking orders. For me, he's playing some of the best stuff I've ever seen him play. And obviously he's turning 35 in a few months. On a side note for another time, give him a new contract. But yeah, it was just Brighton ripped them apart time and time again to have, I think, 60-odd% possession, 16 shots to Liverpool's 6. They just took them apart again and again. And like you said, it was almost surreal to think this is pretty much the same personnel squad-wise that won the Champions League and the Premier League. I know every team has sort of a cycle in terms of years, and they should probably regenerate every now and again. But for me, it felt like two teams going in the opposite directions. And Klopp, I wonder just on, I mean, he could be in trouble. I don't know. Obviously, he's got so much credit in the bank, but just he was out of ideas. I'm not quite sure if that's just him being Klopp, sort of just like, if that's a message to the board, but then he's saying that we don't need new transfers or whatever. But Brighton outplayed them from the moment the whistle blew to the moment it finished off. And it's just like, this was fantastic to watch. The amount of people I've seen on social media saying Brighton are the best team to watch in the league under De Zerbi. It's just, it was a joy to watch. There was so many good things going on. And like you say, Solly March was fantastic. I think that's apparently his first ever brace. And it was also nice to see Danny Welbeck get him back in amongst the goals. I think that's his first Premier League goal of the season. Almost like a Gascoigne-esque flick over the defender and then volleyed in. But yeah, Tom, let's go on to Solly March. So I'm gonna eat a bit of not so well humble pie. Maybe I basically got it wrong about 3 weeks ago or so. I doubted whether Solly March would ever kind of be the reliable player that Brighton needed in terms of just bagging goals, because he'd had a very unfortunate night at Charlton, blazed the penalty attempt over the bar in the shootout, missed a glorious couple of chances in that Carabao Cup defeat to Charlton just before Christmas. But then basically he scored a worldie against Southampton, and in all competitions, that's 4 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. Tom, I owe you an apology because, again, you just consistently back the doubted players from the fans of like Pascal Gross, and that's a victory sip he's just doing there. It's I was wrong. Solly March, as De Zerbi said, could be Champions League level. He's that good.
Absolutely. I mean, I love Solly March. I think a lot of people have been really hard on him in recent seasons, and I can see why if you just look at the form. But this was a guy in the Championship who was just, again, a bit of an underappreciated hero because Anthony Knockaert was just so good. Then we came into the Premier League, and those first few games he had, he was playing without any fear at all. He didn't care who he was up against. He didn't care if it was Kyle Walker. He didn't care if it was Kyle Walker-Peters. He didn't care if it was Al Wan-Bissaka or any of them. He was so game for every single game you could think of, whether that is teams that are fighting for Champions League football to relegation battles. Then he got a horrendous injury, and then he probably got a couple more as life in the Premier League went on, and that just didn't help matters. And I think what he needed is just almost like a cheerleader behind him, just him saying like, "I believe in you." And I think if you see Solly March's comments afterwards, like saying about how great De Zerbi is, he's loving playing under him, and he's that guy he's willing to put his arm around your shoulder and just tell you that you're a good footballer and he believes in you. And then he goes, that's something I actually needed. So clearly that there was just, you knew that he was there. And I saw it in the Championship. I saw it in the start of the Premier League life that he is capable of doing this. And it's just that whether it's a little bit of confidence, clearly it is, because all he needed was that little arm around the shoulder moment and just have a little chat, pat on the back, off you go, have fun at. And look what happened. He just scored an outrageous goal against the best goalkeeper in the world. And this is a goalkeeper that is actually keeping Liverpool in the top half of the Premier League at the moment. I thought Alisson was all right. And actually, there's also point out the fact that March won a penalty as well. If it wasn't for VAR and if it wasn't for him just a little bit too early, we'd be talking about a demolition probably. So again, and I kind of said this when De Zerbi came in. I said Solly March could be the new Berardi for back when De Zerbi was at Sassuolo. For those who can't remember, Berardi was a guy who was playing on the left wing back role and had averaged 6-7 goals a season. And then all of a sudden you just see this jump in stats where he got about 14, 13, 15 goals in a season. And funny enough, when did De Zerbi come in? You don't even need to research it. You could just see it in his stats. And I honestly think that for those of you who like your fantasy football, I think you need to really look at not at Solly March, who is ridiculously cheap and is giving really good returns at the moment, to go along with Koru Matoma as well. Because let me tell you, I am super smug the fact that I dropped a couple of Liverpool players for March and Matoma this weekend. And while we're on the subject, just the attack as well, because I think another player who is gone under the radar in this is Evan Ferguson. I mean, this is again, he's 18 years old, Richie. It's criminal. It is criminal just how it's not even about the technique or how good he is on the ball. It's how he's reading the game that's frightening me. he is frightening to watch because he's not just going in position, just strolling about. He's reading the game. He's looking over his shoulder. He's counting the players around him. He's seeing like this, got this like vision above him where he knows where everything and everyone is. And when he's reading the game, he's getting himself in those positions. And he's quite clearly, he's been told your position's a bit more fluid. He's not staying straight in the middle. He's supporting on the wings as well. And it's paid in dividends because he set up Marge's goal, first goal anyway. And so I'm really excited how he's going to be like, but I don't want to take that away from how good Solly March has been so far this season. In his first 156 Premier League appearances, he scored just 4 goals. In the last 4 games, he scored 4. So I think we could be in for a really exciting season towards the end of it if we could keep this going, because I can't see us stopping scoring. It's frightening, and I'm really excited to see how De Zerbi does against Palace away. Cool, because that's going to be a game that De Zerbi's going to love. I think he's going to relish every moment of that.
Just a quick word on Ferguson. Yeah, completely agree. For someone so young, it's mad how a complete player he is for one so young. I mean, just holding the ball up, he can shoot with either foot. He loves to get drop deep and bring others into play, and just really fantastic awareness and anticipation. It's just to think how good he could become is a very exciting thought if you're a Brighton fan. But interesting thing about him. So last year, I spoke to him about I think this was a little bit before he got given his new contract. And he actually said how he turned down the chance to go to Liverpool. He also previously had trials at, I think, Manchester United, Celtic, Everton. But he basically said the reason why he chose Brighton was because of the pathway. And I will quote, he said, if you go to a team such as Liverpool, they can buy a striker for 60 to 70 million. At Brighton, they like to bring their academy players through and give them a chance. I say that was the reason, looking long-term rather than short-term. So, and he's completely right, because so he said that in May 2022. And then I think a month or so later, Liverpool spent, 60, 70 odd million on Darwin Núñez. They've just spent nearly 40 million on Cody Gakpo in January. And obviously Liverpool famously had given some of their academy players the chance in the first team, going back a bit further, Steven Gerrard, but more recently, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then, Curtis Jones, and maybe Harvey Elliott, although he might have, I think, been from another club, maybe not too late, whatever. But the point is that he's right. I mean, would he be playing for Liverpool? Probably not. I asked De Zerbi about this situation before the game, and he said, you can choose what you think and what your values are. I'm happy Ferguson stayed with us, and I think he can improve a lot playing better here than staying on the bench at a bigger team. And I think this is something that I think we can maybe discuss another time, maybe not today, but the situation that Brighton are in, almost being maybe the best of the rest in terms of, the top 6 or whatever. The dilemma of, does a player go to a bigger team but maybe not play? They might get some Champions League football and a hefty pay rise or whatever. Or do you go for a team who's not as big pay, but you're going to play maybe every single week and you can become loved there? It's the kind of the dilemma of, the ambition versus just being happy, and the grass is not always greener. But yeah, on Ferguson, he's a real gem. And I just hope that Brighton continue to do the good work that they're doing with him, and just, helping his flower bloom even more, Tony bloom more. So, yeah.
That was terrible.
Thank you. Here every week.
Also, by any chance, did you see the clip of Tony Bloom in Match of the Day highlights as his wife was stroking his face? Just calming down.
No, I
He's like,
don't think I
like you could tell, like he's so excited, and his wife is just there, just stroking his face.
stroking his face. Interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm just there, like, it's just brilliant. I love it. Yes, so I mean, we could chat on and on and on about this Liverpool win. But I mean, Richie, you spoke to De Zerbi after the match. I mean, he must have had a fair few words to say.
Yeah, I mean, he was in really, really good spirits. Saying he was so proud of the players. He actually set Matoma and Solly March a task for the end of the season. So he wants them both. He's got a bet on that. He basically wants them both to crack 10 goals this season. So, and I think there maybe 4 each. I think maybe in all competitions. But yeah, they're a lethal duo. Obviously, it's great to see them firing. He said he was a bit surprised by the way that Liverpool set up in terms of Trent Alexander was sort of bombing forward a bit more, so they had 3 at the back, and I think that maybe helped Brighton. But the main takeaway from me, just in terms of because it's very much in the news right now, was the latest update in this Leandro Trossard saga that we're going through. So for those who have been living under a rock in the past few days or so, I'm going to sort of try and do an abbreviated timeline of this turn of events. So I think everyone can pretty much agree Trossard has not been particularly good for Brighton since returning from the World Cup. He looked a bit sluggish against Charlton before Christmas, was fine against Southampton, maybe a little bit subpar and ineffective against Arsenal. Was an unused substitute against Everton, and obviously Ferguson started and scored in that game. Was not in the Middlesbrough squad. After that game, De Zerbi said that he had a calf issue, but then it really went up to 11 on the dial because on last Friday, basically, De Zerbi said that Trossard. Let's go back a little bit. Previously, a few days prior, I think, De Zerbi said that he thought Trossard wasn't giving his maximum and wanted him to train harder and give more to the team and stuff like that. And then he revealed on Friday that Trossard left a training session without telling anyone after he found out that he'd been omitted from the squad to face Middlesbrough in the FA Cup, not the weekend, the one before that. So I will give some quotes on that, just a little bit of a taste. He said, Leandro knows very well my opinion. The last training before the Middlesbrough game, when he understood he didn't play, he left the session without saying anything, and that is not good. On Monday, so a week ago today, I spoke to him and explained I don't like this attitude and behavior. And he basically said that his door is still open for him, but the onus is on him to get back in his good books. I was on the bus home after the Brighton press conference, and I see a tweet land, and it's this diatribe from the agent of Leandro Trossard. A funny, interesting name, Josie Comhair. I don't know. And he basically said, he said his agent claimed that De Zerbi had humiliated the Brighton star. And I'll just read the quote in full here. So, before Leandro left for Qatar, Brighton's intention was to have Leandro sign on as in the new contract. This did not happen as the parties did not come to an agreement. Leandro has also indicated that he's ready for his next step. After the World Cup, there was an altercation between Leandro and a player in training over a trivial matter. Since then, the manager no longer speaks to Leandro, which is obviously not conducive to the atmosphere, nor is it performance-orientated. Leandro still had a starting place against Southampton and Arsenal, but against Everton he was on the bench. He was also not included in the 5 substitutions that took place at the time, and this was without any explanation. In the run-up to the Middlesbrough game, Leandro had already indicated twice that he had problems with his calf. This was the reason why he stopped training. This was, incidentally, in consultation with the medical staff at Brighton. The manager told Leandro that he had to train separately. And last Monday, the manager, quote, humiliated Leandro in group and indicated that he no longer wanted to see him. A manager who has not communicated directly with his player for 4 weeks is really incomprehensible. Incidentally, it is also the manager who has indicated several times that a transfer is the most convenient solution. It is therefore important that Brighton cooperates with a potential transfer during this transfer period and shows a benevolent attitude which is beneficial to both parties. And final thing before I throw over to you, Tomo. Again, so going back to the start, De Zerbi basically said after the Liverpool game, he's not made a mistake in dropping Trossard, and he has no problem with the winger leaving the country because on Friday, the report surfaced that Trossard had gone back to Belgium. But again, no problem with that. But he essentially said, I knew he left the country. I want to be clear about Trossard. In this moment, I'm sorry for the situation. I didn't make a mistake with him. The people who work inside of Brighton know the situation. I'm fine with myself. I'm ready to open the door for him because he's a good guy and he's a very good player for us. Very important. Lots to unpack there. Tom, what was your thoughts on this kind of ever-changing timeline of events?
Well, before I go any further, I just want to say as well, shout out to Charlie Parker-Turner for breaking that news, managing to find it on the Belgian site and translate it.
Friend of the show,
one of our
course.
own. So, friend of the show, covers the Brighton well, and it's great to see that he managed to break that. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of agent talk here that doesn't sit right with me. And it gives agents a bit of a bad name here. The thing that makes me laugh is it's the comment he made about the Everton match, where I would feel if I was in Trossard's shoes and I got told you're coming on when we were 4-1 up, we're taking the absolute mickey out of this team at their own back garden. I'll kind of be like, right, that's kind of like the level you see of me, Gaffer. Right, okay. If I was an elite, if I want to talk about the elite mentality of these professional athletes, I would be offended for being brought on at 4-1 up, because I would see it more as a confident boost for these youngsters, which De Zerbi did, to give them that opportunity of like thinking, right, we're in great control here. Let's give these lads a bit of a run out, which we did. So I find the agents thinking behind this statement a bit laughable. As for the Middlesbrough game, yeah, you should be dropped. One, you haven't been playing that well. Two, it's an FA Cup match against lower league opposition. So it's a good chance for us to rotate it a little bit, rest your legs, because, you know, we've had a bit of a tough running in the festive season. You've played basically every single match, more or less every single minute, including the Charlton game. So, yeah, you need a bit of a rest. And the Borough match was a great opportunity for that. Probably thinking ahead, bigger picture. And I think the first paragraph of it all, when he was talking about it, it's just like, it almost sounds like as if there was a deal that was offered, but they didn't take it. They rejected it. So it's kind of like, well, 6 of one, half a dozen the other here. If you have rejected that deal, then of course you're going to be in this difficult, up in the air about my future at the club situation, because you've kind of delayed these contracts. World Cup happens, and we all know what happened over in the Belgian camp. If we take everything as gospel as what happened in that Belgian camp, then Trossard wouldn't have been a very, very happy camper coming back home. So there's a lot of things here, a lot of external factors are at play here that doesn't sit right with me. But I think you know, the club's played it well. De Zerbi's played it brilliantly.
Yeah.
And, you know, the work, if again, there are rumours, there's speculation of the altercation. Sounds to me like a senior dressing room figure just kind of like taken De Zerbi's side in it all, just kind of saying, look, come on, we know you're better than this. Let's see it. And Trossard just didn't take that well. So of course he's going to get disciplined for it. I would do. If that happened to me on my Football Manager game. Yeah, of course you're going to be training with the reserves. I wouldn't have you in my dressing room. It dressing rooms are a very, very sensitive environment. You tip the scales one end and toxicity thrives very quickly. So I mean, fair play to any manager that can actually sustain a dressing room at one club for a very long period of time, because that is a very, very hard thing to do. And when you're willing to discipline some of the most important players, and Trossard is one of our important players on paper, then, you know, fair play to you. You've got to be disciplined in this sport. So I do find it odd, the fact that he's just gone out the country. There's rumours of this overseas bid that's been rejected. So maybe one back out so he can talk to this club and get personal matters sorted before they make another bid. Who knows? It's so easy to speculate on these transfer stories, which is a bit of a bugbear of mine. But, you know, the thing that I find amusing about it was that we haven't really missed him. So I don't know whether or not the agents kind of like tried to bluff Tony Bloom, which is the most ridiculous thing you could ever do, because he's a professional poker player and a very, very good businessman at that, to get a bigger and better deal under Trossard. But like I said, we haven't missed him. We've just walked all over Liverpool. We made Liverpool look mediocre. We made Middlesbrough look like as if they're struggling in the Championship still. We've made Everton a Championship side. Look at the Championship side. We've convincing wins at Goodison Park. We've beat the Champions League finalists just this weekend gone. We're on a great run, and we're not relying on just one player. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. I would like to see Trossard stay personally, because I see him as a very, very good player. He could play in the wings. He could support in the middle. He's got that versatility and fluidity about him that would really suit De Zerbi well when we go on the attack. But at the same time, if you're not going to be a team player, all right, there's the door. We'll find someone else in the transfer market, or we'll just bring up a youngster. I mean, Ferguson's got no problem at all playing as their first teamer at the moment. So again, everything's pointing out that they've tried to bluff, and Tony Bloom's still got the upper hand here. So I think if I was Trossard's agent, I'd be thinking very, very carefully if I'm going to try to make this move for my clients in the future. It's a poor move from him.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. I think in terms of the hand that he's played, it's not gone particularly well in the past few days, because obviously there's a chance that he might not be able to stay at Brighton, where he plays regularly. If he does go to somewhere else, his antics might not be perceived particularly well. I spoke to, I did an article on this earlier today. I spoke to a friend of the show, Kaya Kainak, of Football London Arsenal chief correspondent, and he basically said as much, that, you know, Arteta will probably not warm very well to, you know, the fallout from this Trossard De Zerbi incident. Well, just finish on continue on the speculation thing. So apparently Tottenham, the Athletic, claimed that they've had a £12 million bid knocked back, which is a bit, you know, lowballing, to be fair. But yeah, in terms of like his antics, Brighton's transfer stance, 12 million, quite low that. And yeah, maybe just the teams being reluctant to get him, and obviously Chelsea, which is a club that he mentioned in the past, saying, he wouldn't mind going there, but he didn't want to play on the bench. Obviously, they've just spent 88 odd million or so on Mudryk. So I don't know. I think in terms of the outlook for him, in terms of transfer teams looking at me, it was looking a lot rosier for him pre-World Cup than now, because obviously Belgium went out in the group stage of the World Cup. He didn't play that much or have that much of an impact when he did play. And obviously his attitude and behaviour has been called into question by De Zerbi in the past few weeks. So yeah, it doesn't look as he's not in the best situation now. And yeah, I mean, personally, I think if Brighton are really serious about trying to kick on to Europe, I do think they need to keep a Trossard just in the squad, because he could provide something different. And obviously he's still the joint top scorer, and he's on his day, he's a fantastic player. I mean, he's got a hat-trick against Liverpool. You don't need to doubt his credentials, but the attitude is obviously an issue. It would be a great return if he was integrated back into the fold, but just the way he's been talking about it in previous months and then this sort of drop off, I don't know. I think he might have sort of crossed the Rubicon into the point of no return, maybe for Brighton. But yeah, like you said, smashing teams left, right, and centre. They've shown that he is not he's not irreplaceable. But I do think if he did go, they would be smart to maybe bring someone else in. But yeah, it should be an interesting turn of events, and I don't think this story is done yet.
No, it's not. It's clearly going to be our big transfer window story for this month. Anyway, I can't see. Doesn't seem to be that we're going to bring anyone in. To be honest, do I see us bringing someone in? I don't really think so. There was a few whispers of bringing in a couple of Shakhtar Donetsk players that De Zerbi used to work with in the past. Again, very, very unlikely, it seems. So I think our January transfer coverage is going to start and end with Leandro Trossard. Whether or not he stays when the transfer window shuts in February is going to be another matter. So it will be interesting to see how that all goes, but it'll also be interesting to see how we get on during the rest of this month. Leicester's coming up. We've got Wolves, Liverpool to decide this week as well in the FA Cup.
Bring on Liverpool.
Bring them on. Honestly, we're in this position now where we are frighteningly good. We've got no fear at all. We have gone in every single match under De Zerbi believing that we could win. The only banana skin I've seen so far has been that Charlton match. And the more that competition progresses, the more annoyed I've been, to say the least.
Yeah. Might have been.
That's what might have been. And I can't believe I'm actually saying that. I can't believe I'm actually saying we could have had a chance to win that, especially now that Man City have been knocked out. But, Newcastle and Manchester United are the favourites to get into that final. And that'll be a great final between those two. It'll be interesting to see how that goes about their way. But, I'm not afraid to say this. I fancy our chances in the FA Cup. I fancy our chances to have a really good run in the Cup. I don't know what Zerbi plans for it. Judging by how we did at Borough and how we played and how we got set up in that starting 11, I think he's taking it seriously. I think he's got confidence in the squads to just compete for both Europe and for the Cup. So bring it on. I don't know what on earth this season's got in store. It'll be previously, I'll take 10th, I'll take 12th. Don't want to talk about the Cups. We get a shock win, happy days. If not the end of the world. Now I'm thinking, come on, I want another trip to Wembley, Richie. I want another trip there. I want to take over Wembley. I want to take over London again. It was just, that was a great experience. Just a shame that we had to play City. So for me, I just think let's go ahead with it. Let's push on. Let's do this, because I'm buzzing so far this season. I cannot wait. And even this banana skin Trossard in the mix, it hasn't hurt us. It hasn't hurt us at all, and probably in the past it probably would have. Now we're kind of like still dancing away. I'm still grinning from the Liverpool match and buzzing ahead what happens with Leicester.
Yeah, and I think that's a good note to end on. So we'll be back later in the week to preview the Leicester game on Saturday. We'll speak to someone from Leicestershire Live for the view from the opposition for that. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening, guys. And yeah, as Tomo said, the future is very, very, very bright at Brighton. See you later, guys.